Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the International Mastermind Show. I am Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. We're wearing a couple of hats today, but that's okay. I am just so excited to have you guys be with us. Let's see if we can turn a couple of these things off. All right, see if we can turn a couple of these things off. I am just really, really excited to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about desire. And desire is one of those things that it is at the absolute core of this process. It actually begins the process. And wanted to just make sure that when we start thinking about Think and Grow Rich, that it is one that you recognize that if you don't have a dream, you can't have a dream come true. You have to start with that desire. We come on every Saturday morning and we talk about a principle of Think and Grow Rich. Typically, we have a couple of co-hosts with us. Ann McNeil is somewhere in the world. He's traveling around the world. And Dr. Peter James is enjoying some time with family. So I get to be here one-on-one with our guest. And I want to bring in our guest because Miss Catriona Jones is, boy, I tell you, she's done so much. She started as a teacher, but she is doing so much in the space of Think and Grow Rich, in the space of women's empowerment, that I think she's going to be the very, very best person to talk about the importance of desire. So with that, Katrina, come on in. How come on into the show. How you doing?
Hello, Galen. Thank you. I'm doing really good and I'm super excited to be here as well. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about how did you get into this book, Think and Grow Rich. This is one of those books that a lot of people will read once, they'll put it on their shelf, and they'll say, so they can say that they've read it. But the people who come back to it and see this as more than just a book, they end up reading it more than once. How did you get into this?
Yeah, I think we do because I certainly, first time I dipped into it, and I can tell you this time I'm really, yeah, in more depth with Think and Grow Rich. So the first time I read it would have been around COVID time. So about 5 years ago, I think, it presented a great time for study, and Bob Proctor had been doing an event, and I came across it there, and everybody seemed to be talking about it. Once you hear about it, you just, hear lots of people talk about it. And then Cleona O'Hara, who is from Derry, where I'm from as well, had been on social media talking about it, and that's when I first read it. But I've been reading it deeply, studying it more recently.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
Well, hey, I really want us to get into this conversation. If you are joining us via YouTube, I'm going to encourage you to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can be part of this conversation every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also, if you are already following us and watching us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video so that the YouTube folks, algorithm, and everyone on YouTube will know that we've got a conversation going on right here that is worth checking out. So if you can hit that thumbs up icon, that would be awesome. We've already got Laura Jackson joining us. Thank you so much. Carla Hill is here. Doretha Dennis is always with us. So thank you so much for being a part. And Ann McNeil is joining us somewhere in the world. So thank you for finding a way to connect with us. Uh, and Shannon Charlton just joined us. So hit that thumbs up icon. and so we can get into this conversation a little deeper. So I'm going to share this video because this video outlines all the different principles of Think and Grow Rich, and I think it's a great starting point for us to get into this conversation more deeply as we talk about desire. I want you to be aware of all the principles that go into this philosophy because desire in and of itself is worth talking about. But when you think about how this fits into a larger philosophy, it has even more significance. So with that, I'd love for you to take a look at this video and we'll be back on the other side.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right, and there you have it, all 13 principles. And I never grow tired of seeing and understanding how all these principles connect. And we are talking today about the principle of desire. Our guest is Miss Catriona Jones. She is joining us from Derry, England, right outside of London, as I understand.
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yes, Northern
Ireland.
Ireland.
And she is an international author. She is a female empowerment coach, a motivational speaker, and she runs a thriving coaching academy in Derry, right outside of Derry in Ireland. And we are talking about the principle of desire. So let's get deeper into this conversation. Catriona, I'd love to hear your story because very often when people meet us and we're on screens or on stages, they say, "Wow, I'd love to do that. I'd love to be that," but they don't know necessarily the journey that it took to get to where we are. Talk a little bit about what that journey was for you, because I'm sure you weren't born and then the next day you landed a speaking gig there in Ireland talking about women's empowerment. So what's that story been for you?
Okay, thanks, Galen. I suppose for me, well, the first thing I'd like to share is that I grew up in Northern Ireland in the 70s, and so anybody that is familiar historically, we had a lot going on, and I think to really put it in a nutshell, it was a difficult time, and coming from that background, socially, economically, I had a scarcity mindset. When you grow up with very little and you've got a very challenging political situation around you, um, yeah, you're going to have that. That was the situation that I had, this scarcity mindset, and really grew up with a lack. But as I reflect on my journey, Galen, I would say the richness of my life at that time was the school environment. I always had a thirst for learning. So even though we didn't have very much growing up, and I came from a big family, and our parents did their best, as everybody at that time in Derry did, I always loved school. So I
Mm,
had this thirst for learning, and I always had this desire for more. I always wanted more. I love growing and expansion. And so I can join those dots now looking back. And so my journey very rapidly got me out of Derry. As soon as I was 18, I went to London. So London was in there somewhere, geographically. And I did my teacher training because that's what I knew. That's what really lit me up. And that's where I felt at home, was learning. And so I went off and did my teacher training. And it wasn't always straightforward for me, Galen. I suffered from anxiety. I lacked confidence in myself, even though I presented, someone that was confident and academic and had a very clear vision of where she was going. I did suffer overwhelm and self-doubt. And therefore, I did begin to immerse myself in self-help early on in my journey. And I look back now, and I was just making a few notes before we came on. 32 years ago, I took myself into my very first self-help group. And from there, I continued in the role as a teacher. And I suppose a turning point for me was when I had our children. I hit a low point in life and just thought, what's it all about? Yeah.
Wow. I mean that is a great example of how there's always a backstory. There's always something that supports who we get to be today. But I
Mm.
want to go back to dairy because I've never been there, but it sounds like a place that might not present the future, the kind of future that you had hoped for yourself. and that's why you were looking to leave. What was that? What was that desire? What was that pulling for something other than what you were able to see? Because very often it's hard to grow beyond what you see. But what
Yes.
was it? What was it about your experience that suggested that there was something more than what you were experiencing?
Yeah. That's a really great question. And as you were asking it, I could see this contrast of the little girl. Like I have a very clear image of me standing playing school in our home, in our kitchen. So there was like one room in the house where everything happened, where the cooking, you ate your dinner, you all sat on the sofa around the fire, the clothes were drying. So there was this kind of limited environment, and there was a real lack of opportunity around Derry. There wasn't any employment, there was civil war, there was a lot of depression, and then there was this little girl that dreamed of sparkle, that loved opulence, that was dressing up from the age of 5 and, wanting to be on stage and wanting to have an audience and wanted to teach and had this excitement. Like I would come home and whatever we did in school, I'd be teaching it to my mother or my siblings or the dolls. So there was always this desire to expand. Um, and something else that just came in there as I was sharing this, like I can remember having a pen pal and receiving my first letter and seeing the American flag on it. And I would have been about 11 then. So there was always this yearning for travel, for more. Something within me knew there was something bigger than this little kitchen where it was all going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is such a fascinating story. And
Mm.
I love how you were able to step outside of your current situation and imagine something bigger, imagine something different. One of the things too that I'm always focused on is how the people that we surround ourselves, they can either accelerate our success, they can retard our success, or they can just totally cancel everything out. Because we tend to be similar and gravitate, be like-minded with the folks that we are around. What was that like? Were you around other people who had this desire for something bigger, or did you have to find something deeper inside yourself to strive for something more?
Yeah, I definitely had to find something deeper within myself. I had to hold steadfast to what I wanted because growing up then, I talk about this in my book. Derry was very famously known for shirt factories. And there's lots of music around that. We're a real city of culture now, a lot of music around how the women were the breadwinners and went off to the factories. So I was the first woman, first girl, young girl at the time, to actually go into third level education because I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And that really has been my ticket, my golden ticket, and holding on to that. And at a time when you didn't have any income coming into a family and you had daughters, like there was 5 girls in our house and 1 boy, like we were kind of expected then to bring in that income. And I was the first to change that. And my sisters did follow and went off to London and did the teacher training. So holding on to that and yeah, and doing that. And I think the piece around, being more conscious of like-minded people has been something I've become super aware of later on in life. Yeah, and I think one of the things I've learned recently in my study of Think and Grow Rich is I did try to do a lot of that on my own without the community.
Yeah.
That's something that I have really, yeah, tried to do it on my own. Always kind of managed to detach from anything that wasn't feeding my soul or wasn't in alignment with, my values and my goals. However, there has been a huge piece of my life where I tried to do life on my own.
Wow. And how,
Yeah.
how did that work out for you, trying to do life on your own?
I was going around in circles, going around in circles. And that's where, as you were chatting there in the introduction, I kind of could feel this flat energy when I talked about the first time I read the book
Yeah.
of Think and Grow Rich because I didn't feel any energy or connection with it. However, now the second time since I've joined the Napoleon Hill Institute with CEO Catriona O'Hara and the beautiful community there, it's like I'm reading it for the first time. It's like I feel a beautiful, authentic spiritual connection with Napoleon Hill. Um, I'm actually reading the other book, The Outwitting the Devil, and it's like, wow, and I guess I, of all people, know as a teacher and educator that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Um,
Yes.
and I know I can't do this on my own.
I just finished Outwitting the Devil, and that again, that seems like a book that I've got to read more than once, just to understand what's going on. Incredibly fascinating. I'm often curious about what was the transition point for you that turned this book into something that you said, hey, look, let me read this again. Let me study this more. I've gone through it once. I understand, a couple of lines from it. If someone asked me about
Yes,
whether or not I've
yes.
read it, I could quote some things back to them. But there has to have been a turning point between that first read and the decision to join the Napoleon Hill Institute.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that aha moment that
That's a
that
great
came to you?
question because it is really significant. And I would say um, I turned 50 last year. And I think there is something that really shifts when a woman comes into menopause. And a big part of it was I haven't come this far to only come this far, but
Mm,
this was really fueled by some personal experience that we were going through as a family. And I can share from my journey that something that was brought to light through the whole of the family is, and last year I learned that I was a neurodivergent woman. So I'm like, wow, my whole life made sense. So that clarity and that deepening of the understanding, which is so valuable when we continue to do the inner work and stay on the journey, that realization of revealing that piece to me, really, I thought, wow. And then the piece that I really got clarity on was the fear that my whole life, Galen, I was in fear of criticism.
mm,
So even though I'd achieved a lot, I have my teaching career, I have a loving husband, we have a beautiful home and two teenagers now. I did my master's, I traveled, we have our own home. Even though I had achieved those things, fear was still driving the bus. That fear of criticism, which I would take a step out and then I would pull back in and cocoon myself and work alone. And that was the opener. And I thought, I have to shift this.
mm.
My desire has got to be in the driving seat here. My goal has got to be, and I couldn't do that on my own. And that's when speaking to Cleona and other members of that community were able to hold that space for me and say, it's time.
Wow, fantastic story. I love that you've started to talk about fear. And Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about that there are six basic fears, that all of the versions of fear usually line up to one of those six.
Mm.
And then I love in the book Outwitting the Devil, we get deeper into how fear is used to keep you from fulfilling what you were put on this planet to do. Um, talk a little bit more about the courage that it took to face and to name that fear. Because I don't know if I haven't been a woman before, but I know for us guys, we don't want to admit that we're afraid of anything, and we want to ignore, we want to pump up our chest and say we've got this, and so for us, for me anyway, the first step is to admit I've got this fear, and it lines up with one of these six. What was that like for you admitting,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing all these amazing things, but underneath, I've got this fear of criticism that if I don't address, it's going to affect my ability to do amazing things.
Yeah. I do hear you on that ego because there is something about the ego that just wants to be right. It's more important to be right, than be happy. Isn't that crazy? Like, we'd rather be right than happy with the ego. For me, there was a massive sense of relief. I think I was at the stage through what we had gone through as a family in the last year or two, um, that there was a sense of, no, I'm ready. I'm ready to face this because it is easy to blame. It's easy to say, but sure, I'm from Derry and, the money isn't here and, people don't have that money and all the women that went before me just, why can't I just go out and do that 9 to 5 job and, be grateful. Be grateful for what you have and those limiting stories. Um, um, yeah, that would have been easy. I think I did feel a sense of relief. It was like, oh, yes. And also, I felt reassured when I spoke to Cleona and all her years and experience of coaching, particularly around the six ghost of fear. She had also said that culturally, Ireland in particular, were pretty good at the fear of criticism. If this was an Olympics, we probably would have the gold medal in that. And
Got it.
it's
Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame.
we play small, we shrink and all of that. Yeah, no, I relieved to know that my vision, my goals is now in the driving seat. Fear is going to come around, but now with the community and the immersion, it's time.
Ah, I love that. And then you didn't stop there. One of the things I'm impressed with, and I got people in my family who are like this, where it's one thing to recognize I've got this opportunity, I've got this area that I've got an interest in that I need to address. You went off and got a diploma in neurodiversity from the School of Medicine.
Yes.
What was that about? What was it that caused you to say, it's not enough just to read an article or read a book. I want to get a diploma in
Yeah.
this area so that I can be more fully myself.
Yeah. I would say at that stage, a couple of years back, again, I hit another low point in my life, another dark night of the soul. And that, if we set, I believe if we set those lofty goals, we have got to go deeper. So the beginning of, I suppose, the clarification around that, I would say, was my personal experience of suffering at the hands of the education system.
Mm,
Our system is broken. And not only did I come out of that system as a woman that loved to teach, that had a vision to be a head teacher, I came out of that system as a professional. And then I was at its mercy again as a parent. And when that took me to my knees again, because if anything, you'll do anything for your children.
mm,
And it brought out that lioness in me. And I thought, I am going to turn this around. And so again, I wanted to know, I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to make a difference. That wee 5-year-old then wanted to help everyone because, one of the things that always rings home to me is that beautiful quote. I think it's by Ram Dass. Forgive me if I've got it wrong. And he says, we're not home until everyone's home.
mm. Wow.
So I had to go deeper with my purpose and mission. And for the first time, my goal scares me.
Oh my, I love that. I've said a couple of times on this show that if your dream doesn't make you pee in your pants a little bit, you're probably not dreaming big enough.
I
And
get
so I
it.
love that you say your dream scared you, and that's how you knew you were onto something.
Yeah.
And then you're a female empowerment coach. I am passionate about the whole idea of coaching as well. And
Mhm.
one of the things I talk about very often when I try to describe what it means to be a coach, I share that all of my clients are brilliant. I tend to attract brilliant clients. But if you ask them what they want, very often it's hard for them to explain what they want. And if you can't answer that question, you have a tendency to think, well, I must not know what I want because I
Hmm.
can't answer that question. Well, we all know. It's just that the part of the brain that controls knowing is not the same part of the brain that controls language. So it's hard for us to explain what we know. And my job, my passion as a coach is to help my clients articulate what they already know that they want and then help them find the courage to take the steps that they already know that they need to take. Talk a little bit about, because we're talking about desire. Desire is one of those things that we have a tendency to know it. We can't necessarily find the language to explain it. What was that journey like for you to find the language to explain this little gnawing feeling that you had that something bigger was in store for you? What was that? What was that like to find that language?
I have always been very connected to my feminine energy.
Mm,
And so, and that also, had to shift a little bit as well, because I'm all about the heart. I'm all about the feeling. So that was a very clear emotional process. And I would say the knowing, I always went back to the little girl, to the inner child. And those gifts came a number of years ago when I trained as a Louise Hay teacher and coach. Being able to connect with that younger part of me, because that's where the clues are.
mm.
I really believe that we came into this world with a life purpose. And I'm a born teacher. No one can take that away from me. But I get to choose how much I want to really amplify that in the world. So that process was coming in, I suppose the tools, if you like, that I would use in coaching would be embodiment, connecting with the body, connecting with the heart. I even often say, Galen, to my clients, drop your chin down, there's your heart, what's there, all of those little things. Immediately when I do that, I see my kids and my husband. So that connection to self and inner child, and joy, what lights you up? So that would always, everything always brought me back to school, back to the classroom, back to study, back to learning. And how can I really elevate my God-given gifts to bring that into alignment and purpose?
I love that. I love that. And I love the fact that your specialty, it sounds like, is around leveraging and empowering feminine energy.
Yes.
And when I was first exposed to the concept of feminine energy, it was from one of my accountability partners, and she was talking about the difference between masculine energy and feminine energy, and that both genders, we have both
Yes.
energies. It's just that men have a tendency to lead with masculine energies, and women have a tendency to lead with feminine energies. Masculine energies are things like grinding, creating, uh, you know, uh, making things happen. And as an entrepreneur, you got to have a bit of that.
Yeah.
But
Structure.
selling is a masculine energy. But feminine energies are things like allowing, nurturing, developing, negotiating is a feminine energy. It's like allowing the process to be what it wants to be and then helping it along. Clean that up for me. Did I get that right?
You did
And
that beautifully. I think you had a sneak peek at Bloom Girl, did you?
uh-oh, not yet. Not yet, but it's on
Not
my
yet.
list.
No, I think you described that perfectly. And the softness in the feminine energy allows that flow of negotiating. Um, and this is where I feel a lot of like women in business and female entrepreneurs often need to draw in that masculine energy or connect with that masculine energy to sell and to ask for the sale. It's not unusual to leave that sale on the table, and do that work. So I think you described it perfectly, having that balance of masculine and feminine. And it doesn't have to be 50-50. But we do need it. And I would say have kind of spent, I can easily go to that feminine energy. Um, However, I have developed the masculine energy, and we don't have to lose the essence of who we are. And too much of the feminine for me has affected the income of my business in the past. And then if we've too much of that pushing masculine energy, that also can be repelling. So it's definitely finding that beautiful balance and being open to where do I need to be now? Do I need to be in a structure? Am I putting a framework together? Or am I getting creative around something? And do I need to connect within to the self? Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love what you said about, the most effective person has the ability to choose what's needed for this situation. Do I need to have a masculine energy here to make something happen, to create something,
Mhm.
or is the feminine energy what's called for, where I need to allow, nurture, develop, maybe negotiate some influence for this situation? It's not either or. It's do you have a can you choose? We've got some questions coming in from YouTube. Mr. Wyman Winbush, the wisdom broker, he wants to know. He says, "You mentioned your inner child. What other insights do you credit your inner child? Do you credit your inner child for enabling you to be your best adult self?"
I love that. I love that. I often immediately thought about, children, and I'm on the ground. I still get to work in skills and connect with children, and children are spontaneous and they're curious and they're creative. They never say, "Oh, I can't do that," or "I can't wear that. It's too bright." "Oh no, don't use too much glitter." "Oh, take your time with that. Oh, be careful you don't get any water on your welly." So in terms of the adult self, Napoleon Hill talks about this, about that, um, you know, when you get that gut feeling and I suppose that sense of urgency to take action on that hunch. He uses the word hunch. So I definitely think the curiosity and the creativity and the excitement, excitement is that energy in motion, isn't it? And so we need that to get things going. If you said to a group of children, "Oh, come on, who wants to do this?" or "Which color do you want to be?" It's getting that energy and motion. So I would say curiosity, spontaneity, playfulness, um, yeah, connection and energy, and not really caring what other people think. It's that fear of criticism. What will people think? Said
Ah,
no child ever.
you know,
Yeah.
I
Freedom.
I'm gonna write down what you just said because I love that I've never heard a kid say there's too much glitter here. I've never, I don't know that I don't know a kid has ever said there's too much glitter here or we've got enough glitter.
And I even feel like I feel my inner child coming alive. So I'm consciously observing her and feeling the glitter all over the room. It's the magic. It's the magic. It's our star performance when we own these pieces.
I love it. I love it. And as I start thinking more about this inner child, it's almost as if the inner child is still there, but as with many kids, now they're asking for permission to come out. It's like, can I come out and play? And the adult self, it seems, we have to give our inner child the permission to come out and play rather than just letting the kids play. What's your thought about this idea of giving our inner child permission to come out and play as opposed to keeping them, my upbringing in the black community, specifically in southern United States, it's, sit in the corner. I'll tell you when you need to speak.
Mhm.
Don't break anything.
Mm.
Don't get any dirt on your clothes. Those are your good clothes. I spent good money for that, right?
Yeah.
And that really caused me to ask for permission. Is it okay if I go play on the swings now?
Yeah.
So when you think about this idea of an inner child and having to give your inner child permission to come out and play, what does that how does that hit you?
Yeah, I love it. I just love it, and I can really, that resonates with me. I think I said in my book, if you want to be anything, be Irish Catholic. That's one sure way of keeping you in the box. Be an Irish Catholic woman, I just think I got all of the above. Yeah, allow that inner child because that repression, you see, when we're repressing anything, it causes anxiety and depression.
Mm.
And there's so much magic there. One of the things I was thinking recently, a member of staff came down a corridor in a school and she said, I knew you were here. I could hear you laughing. So we don't just like lift ourselves up in that little inner child. It's contagious. When we allow our inner child to come out to play, if it's appropriate, there are going to be places where we may just need to say, okay, have a moment there, and I'm driving the bus, but we're going to have fun in a minute. There is a time for that, but we actually give everybody else permission to invite their inner child out to play as well.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
you mentioned your book,
Yes.
Bloom Girl, Reclaim the Goddess Power and Purpose from Within to Flourish in Life. Talk a little bit about what is in that book and what caused you to say, now is the time. I've read enough books of my own. I've got a point of view. It's time for me to share my point of view with the world.
Yeah. It was COVID. Galen, it was COVID, and one of the things when I learned that I was neurodivergent, when people were going up the walls, not everyone, I loved COVID. I locked into this space and I wrote my book. I did an author marathon. It was called an author marathon where you had to get up every morning for 1 hour early in the morning and write for the hour for 26 days. So I wrote the essence of the book in the 26 days. And I suppose that again is me as the reader, the study, the learner, the achiever. And I wrote Bloom Girl. Here she is. I said, this is my third baby conceived during COVID. I'm sorry, I've got to share the full joke without a man. That's my little female empowerment joke. And so Bloom Girl then, I suppose working with clients and coaching, I often found the teacher in me would be saying, oh, I'll send you that PDF or I'll send you that little workbook or let me give you this inner child guided meditation. And I thought, God, wouldn't it be great to have it together in a structure as a toolkit? Um, and then it's done. So the book is 5 chapters and it moves through like purpose is the first one, desire, and there's 5 chapters. And each chapter has a workbook, a reflection, a guided meditation. So it is a coaching program and it's embedded with my story. And what I love is people come back to me and they say, oh, I read your book and I could hear your voice the whole way through. And so that was my intention, that it would offer comfort and reassurance and a structure for people to work through. And then a community if they wanted to come on in and join. I've got a group and also work with me. And obviously working with me one-to-one is open to men and women. It's just maybe not so, pink, but the process is the same. That journey of connecting with the inner child, clarifying your purpose, holding space for your goals, and then working on those goal achievement steps for targeting and mapping out and planning. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's another area where I don't know if you were surrounded by other people who had authored books, right?
Yeah.
Your ability to see beyond your surroundings, to be
Yes.
able to see beyond your friend group.
Uh-huh.
What kind of courage does it take to have the audacity to think that you could become an author when you
Yeah.
hadn't seen others around you do that? What was that like?
Oh, you've just touched on something because one of my greatest teachers was Louise Hay. And when I went out to San Diego, we were at her 90th birthday celebration. And it was maybe around 6 months before she passed away. And being there in Hay House with all the Hay House authors, it was almost like I wanted to do something, give something back as well. Like even now, my eyes fill up when I say her name. And being surrounded by these people, and people as well like Wayne Dyer that were part of Hay House, and
Oh,
Christiane Northrup, who's real powerhouse in female empowerment. and seeing people put their work out into the world. And I thought, well, let's put Ireland on the map. Let's put Derry on the map, and still holding that intention to sell more books and to share that story for people that can resonate with my little girl and the woman who I am and becoming and continuing to develop and grow into every day. It was scary because that voice, what are people going to think? Particularly locally, the people that I know me that are going to say, oh, she wrote a book, and I'm going to be in the supermarket and going, who does she think she is? That's
Yeah.
another big one here, well, of our. And then once I did it and I got some feedback, I suppose, I did have to work on that. I did have to work on that and really work on the ego of, well, if it helps one person,
Mm.
being honest, because I am honest in it about my confidence and, some self-image issues that I had. Yeah, that took a bit of courage. So although I wrote the book in 26 days, there were some things that came up in my journey. I needed I needed a year to go through that emotional process so that I could feel really clean around sending the message out. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it. And we've been talking about the courage it takes to own your desire, to clarify your desire. And is somewhere else in the world, but she wants to know, why does the desire principle resonate with you so much? Why is
Mhm.
that principle so important? We've heard little bits and pieces
Yes,
throughout your story, but
yes.
why is that so important?
That's a great question. Thank you, Anne. I'm going right into the heart and the soul here. I have seen and witnessed so many women that went before me, you know, my mother, my grandmother, aunts that were full of so much talent, so much creativity, and it went down that route of being the homemaker and traditionally following the rules of patriarchy, governed by the rules of patriarchy. And for me, I'm there with Cleona O'Hara. I'm going to be in that group of women that she has created and supporting to become a millionaire.
Hmm.
Financial freedom for women. And I would say at the heart of that for me is transforming women, empowering women that have so much more to give, to be able to see the gifts, the talents, and the power that they hold within so
Hmm.
that they don't experience the ancestral history that we see and I've experienced of women, suffering from low self-worth, depression, and an addiction that comes into family.
Wow,
Yeah.
very, very, very good, very good. I have enjoyed hearing you talk about the community that surrounded yourself with, particularly around the writing process. But it sounds like throughout the journey, and in the beginning, you said that you tried to do this on your own. And I'm going to tell you, you probably could have had some success on your own. Don't know that it would have been as big, as robust, probably not even as much fun as what
No.
you've done. One of the things that we do on an annual basis, Ms. Ann McNeil hosts an annual meeting. She calls it an annual meeting for your life. And we get together in Boca Raton, Florida, and we literally just speak life into everyone's dreams and plans. You have to show up with your life in writing. You have to document what have you done over the past 364 days relative to the goals that you set for yourself. And then what are your plans for the next 365 days? And you surround yourself with like-minded people who will speak into your plans and hold you accountable. We actually have to write a letter to ourselves that will be delivered 6 months into the year, saying, "Okay, this is what you said you would have accomplished. How are you doing?" So I just encourage everyone to find a like-minded group. The International Mastermind is the home for mastermind groups. And if you don't have an accountability team, an accountability group, a mastermind to help speak life into your goals and dreams, I'm going to encourage you to go to internationalmasterminders.com and find out how you can get involved with this group. We've got people of all industries. We've got people of all ethnicities. We've got people of all faiths. Even see those little young kids in the front. Don't sleep on those young kids because I call them little terrorists because they will really dig into your dreams and they will talk about holding you accountable. They don't yet know or appreciate the excuses that we give as adults as to why we can't accomplish things. And they just really, really hold you accountable for who you say you're trying to be and your ability to accomplish those things that you say are important to you. So be on the lookout. Usually the first Friday of the year is when we get together in Boca Raton. We just got back from our session this past January. So, Catriona, I want to come back to you and just understand what's your reaction to this idea of a mastermind group? Sounds like you've got a variety of masterminds that you're part of. I know Napoleon Hill was a big fan of his Invisible Council. What's your thought around the importance of masterminding?
I have achieved so much in just 4 months of joining the Napoleon Hill Institute. And that realization that the support, and you had mentioned about someone holding space for your goal, speaking into your goal and holding you accountable. It's easy to say, I'm going to do this and do the vision board. We can get the glitter out again and cut and stick and put all the images that, I've got mine here, but really holding you accountable. And one of the things that really struck me over the last 4 months is a few people saying to me, I see that for you. I see that for you. And then knowing that if there is support that you need or connections that you need, that you're in that network where people in that mindset want to help, want to support, because when we're happy and abundant and have that definite purpose, we want it for everyone. We want everyone to know that you can grow and expand and get rich in all areas of your life.
In all areas, however you define rich.
Yes,
I
exactly.
love it. Oh my gosh, time is getting away from us. We got to start trying to land this plane. But I have just so enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed you. I particularly am taken by this idea of the inner child and the role that inner child plays. It quite honestly wants to play in helping us to accomplish all these dreams that they had. I love what Wyman Winbush said there on YouTube, that the inner child is always asking for permission to come out. The inner child always knows, always has an idea of what to do to make this thing more fun, more effective, and it always wants to come out. But very often it's the adult self that's keeping the inner child in. Sometimes it's appropriate, but most of the time we can use a little bit more fun in our lives. So that's that's one of the key things I've taken from this conversation. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. There are just so many different ways to get a hold of me. But the best way, the most fun way, is to check out the podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We talk to leaders all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. I double dog dare you to try us just once. Guarantee you're going to get something that's going to help you get at least one step closer to your next level. We're on all podcast platforms and have been honored to have won 2 global awards, the Davy and the Signal Award in 2024. So we're having fun and talking to leaders all over the world. And Katrina, how can people get a hold of you if they want to get more insight about you, about your book, and they're enjoying the energy as much as I am?
Right. Yeah, well, obviously you can follow me on social media, Katrina Jones Coach. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And there's also a link there that we could drop in if you'd like to have a chat. We can get online and have a little cup of tea or a coffee together. And I'd love to connect more. So if you want to put that up there, that would be great. And yeah, I'd love to connect with some of you and let you know more about the journey and what I'm up to with the Napoleon Hill Institute, because we've got lots of exciting things happening there. And my book is on Amazon. There it is.
Definitely check out Bloom Girl. I know I'm gonna be downloading that to my Kindle because there is just so much value in understanding and appreciating masculine versus feminine energies. And I think there might be a little girl inside of me wanting to put some more glitter, want to put some more glitter on the project.
Uh,
So I gotta make sure that I listen to that as well. So we're gonna drop the link to connect with Katrina there in on YouTube. Let me get back to YouTube and see if we can drop in that link. And yeah, so great conversation. I just really am impressed with everything that you have, and I'm just going to say that you've allowed yourself to contribute to the world, because we all have great ideas, but it's that self-criticism that usually keeps us from sharing those gifts with the world. Any final thoughts from you as we close out this conversation?
as you were chatting there, I was just gonna, say to everyone that's listening, consciously invite your inner child out to play today and just say, hey, what would you love to do? And connect and see what happens. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And as we close out this conversation, what's next for you? I mean, you've written books, you're certified with the Napoleon Hill Institute. What's the next thing on the horizon for you?
So for me, I want to create impact globally in the education system. I want to really make a difference there and elevate educators, inspire leaders there, and bring meaningful connection into the classroom.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, you guys have heard it. We've been talking with Katrina Jones. She is an international author, a speaker, an educator. She's got diplomas and degrees and certifications. Oh my gosh, I just feel so motivated to live out the rest of this day and see what I can create. I am going to encourage everyone to not only take her up on her offer for a 30-minute consultation conversation, but check out her book and download that. Do yourself a favor, do your inner child a favor, and find out how you can give your inner child more permission to play a larger role in your life. And if you are watching us, please like and share. Make sure you hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video and share this conversation with people in your life that you believe need to stop bugging you about things that they're going to do someday and actually learn the principles to make those dreams a reality. And we talk about those principles every week, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here. And next week, we might have another co host. Dr. Peter James may be back, and we'll be talking about we'll have another conversation about the principle of desire. So until next time, hope you will think and grow rich. Take care.